So let's have a quick look at the growing room I've set up down in the basement and just see how things are coming along. This is our black tomato. It's looking quite healthy. And at the very top, we've got a flower coming out here. Nasturtiums aren't looking too well. Unfortunately, we've got a bit of an aphid infestation going on here. I sprayed them down last week. It looks like I may have to spray them down again. This time I may actually have to get in there and make sure I get under all the leaves better. Spinach again. I think the aphids are really loving the spinach, and that's where I'm finding a lot of them. So this might actually have to get a good wash, or I'm not too sure. We may end up tossing this. These are the cherry tomatoes. And down here it's a little bit cooler than it is upstairs. Now that the weather's getting warmer, plants are doing better upstairs, so I may actually be starting to shut down this grow area down here because we just can't get the heat downstairs. So a lot of these plants may be making their way upstairs. They're only down here just because we just don't have the room up there. Here's the celery that you saw me transplant from, well, started in the water and then transplanted to a pot. It's come along quite well. Behind it we got some more spinach and some honeydews that I transplanted from the larger pot. 2 of the 3 have survived. There's another Chinese celery. This thing's becoming a monster. And I'm quite curious how well it will do if we can make some room upstairs and move it upstairs. So when I was pruning the tomato plants, I took one of the branches off and threw it in a pot of soil just to see how the cutting will do. This has been highly effective outside. I've never tried it inside. And so far, it's hard to tell how well it's doing. Now, of course, because it has no roots, it's not going to have a lot of moisture. And so as soon as I put it in the soil, within a matter of a few hours, it became very wilted. It's not quite as wilted as it was before, but it's still not as healthy as I'd like to see. We'll keep an eye on this and see how it does. On top of the soil, you can see some of the eggshells I had crushed up. I didn't go and mix it into the soil too much. I'm just letting the water slowly wash that into the soil. I don't want to go poking around and ruining any roots. Now in this situation, this pot, there are no roots. But some of my other pots, there may be roots close to the top of the surface. So this is the regular celery, where I had just the bottom cut off, and I had thrown in some water to let it grow some roots. Once it was established it was doing well, I transplanted it into some soil. And here we can see it's doing okay, but it's not quite doing as well as the Chinese celery is doing downstairs. Now whether this is the environment up here or compared to the environment downstairs, downstairs is much cooler and has consistent light, whereas up here the light's been hit or miss, but when there is light it's been relatively warm up here, and at night it doesn't get too cold upstairs. Now on this side I have a beefsteak tomato. It seems to be doing quite well. And to its left, I have one of our black tomato plants that I've moved upstairs. And it seems to be doing a little bit better than the black tomatoes downstairs. Now, of course, tomatoes love their heat and they love lots of sunshine. So I have a feeling that these tomatoes will do better up here. Unfortunately, I just don't have enough space to bring them all up. As we can see here, right in this area here, we have some flower buds coming out. So this black tomato is going to start producing some flowers. Once we get enough, we can start pollinating them and start some tomatoes indoors. Last year, tomatoes only got to a point where they were still green. Generally, when you transplant tomatoes from indoor to outdoor, you don't want them having fruit on them. They tend not to take the shock as well. But we decided to try it anyhow, and it worked out for us. We ended up having fully ripe tomatoes by the end of June or early July. Just a quick update here on one of our cabbage bottoms that we cut off and threw in some water. This is the first one, so it's doing quite well. It's grown a lot of leaves here. I'm not sure how this is going to work, if they're just going to start combining to one cabbage, or if they're going to grow a bunch of new cabbages, or they're just going to take off and just try to grow seeds. Be quite interested to see which way it goes. I've never grown cabbage from the bottom like that. The only plants I've ever really grown from the bottom is actually green onions, and they do quite well this way. When we get our onions out, just cut off the white part, throw in some water, it grows roots really quickly, and then just transplant them into the garden and they'll grow new onions on us. Cabbage has done really well, and the roots on it are quite strong and are getting quite long, and the plant itself has been growing pretty good. But as we notice in the top here, we can actually see it looks like it's going to start growing some flowers. Now, I don't anticipate getting any cabbages out of this, but at the least, it might be able to get some seeds. And if we can get these early enough, we might actually be able to use these seeds in the garden this summer. If not, if it's too late, then I'll just package them and hold on to them for next year. And here we can see some of the roots that have grown on this cabbage. So I'm not too sure if I want to just leave it in the water or transplant it to the soil. But I think I'm going to gamble and go ahead and just transplant it to the soil and see how it does. It should have the roots now to be able to support that. This is one of the branches I had pruned off the black tomato plant. And I just stuck it in some soil. And initially, as I'd expect, it drooped right down. Not being able to pull any water, it can't build enough pressure to sustain itself. Tomato plants are the best indicator of your water conditions. And they will droop really well to indicate when they're running out of water. So if you ever see droopy tomato plants, get some water on them quickly. Now that it's picked itself up, it's perked up pretty good. This tells me that it's getting enough water to support itself, which should indicate some root development. Here I have 3 honeydew plants. One of them got a little too lanky and actually just fell over sometime this morning. It was standing up earlier. So I have to take a look to see if maybe I need some more nutrients in the soil to help it grow some stronger stems. One thing about growing plants indoors is you don't have any wind or breeze. And plants really need some wind to move them around. And this helps them to encourage themselves to build stronger stalks so they can support themselves. One of the most common solutions to this is actually adding a fan in your grow area. This is one of the chili peppers. Some more chili peppers there. And behind it, I've got another chili pepper growing. And they seem to be doing quite well. This is a persimmon I transplanted in my last video. And it's doing quite well, but it hasn't quite pushed that seed pod off yet. Behind it, I have some more peppers growing. So these are the Thai chili peppers. I have a lot going here. And the decision was made to grow many because in previous years it was found that sometimes you get some plants that do well and some that don't. So by growing a lot, we improve our odds of being able to select the better plants. When I transplanted my corn, I started a couple more seeds because I wanted to make sure I had enough corn to grow in the backyard. This time, we wanted to have about 8 corn growing. I had 3 that were tall enough to transplant, so I threw down a bunch more seeds. I've got 5 coming out. There are 3 easy to see, but there's 2 more that are just starting to poke through the dirt. This is one of the mini pumpkin plants that was transplanted to a larger pot. And the other one is way back here. So they both seem to be doing quite well. This is the grape cutting I had growing downstairs. I've brought it up here. Now that I have it in soil and it's developed quite a few leaves, I want to give it some more sunshine and better heating conditions to see if it'll take off. In this pot, I don't really have a heck of a lot going on. Matter of fact, there's nothing going on. These were jalapeno seeds. Now there's quite a few in there, but nothing germinated. So I'll have to see if I have the rest of the seeds and throw them in the freezer a bit to see if that cold cycle will help to get the next batch to germinate. It's starting to get a bit late, and I do have a lot of other pepper plants growing, so I may just hold off on that as well, and maybe I'll think about that one next year. My wife took a leaf off one of our African violet plants and just threw it in some soil to see how it would do and if you can actually use it as a cutting. And it's doing quite well. As you can see, we've got a lot of new leaves coming out of it. So if you have an African violet, you want a couple more, just take a leaf off and stick it in some soil and give it lots of sunshine. This thing's been sitting in the window the whole time, so I think of all our plants, it gets the most sunlight. And if any of our plants are going to enjoy this nice sunny hot window, it's going to be the pineapple. And we can see a lot of lighter green leaves in the top coming out. So it's really starting to take off. So hopefully this will be a good summer for it. I may pull it out a little bit and take a look at the roots at the bottom and just see if anything's coming through the bottom. Looking at the size of the plant, it could be getting close to needing a larger pot. This is the chrysanthemum that was shaved right down to the soil, and it's bounced back really good. Hopefully, once it's grown some more and we're ready to take it outside, we might look at splitting it up into 4 pieces or several plants. This is a nice thing about chrysanthemum, you can get many from just one. This is the jade plant. I had a bad dose of cold freezing weather, and as we can see, we've got lots of leaves coming out through the top. So it's bouncing back really good. And I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll keep you up to date at how it does. So potatoes are doing quite well. Fortunately, they've grown so much that they're actually just starting to fall over, and this is typical potatoes. When they grow really well, they just get to a height where they can't support themselves, and they just fall over. Now outdoors, this may be fine, and it just creates a lot more ground cover, and you get new shoots that come up, but we don't have a lot of space here. So I'll have to find a solution to prop them up a bit better. Okay, so I took some bamboo, and I've tidied them up a lot better than they were before. They're not drooping all over the place. And I'll see how they adjust to this. And depending on how they grow, I'll make some subtle changes. I may have to move a couple of branches here and there and spread them out a bit, but hopefully the plant will do most of that on its own. Unfortunately, one of the problems we're having with the potato plants is you see these big green blobs here. Those are aphids, and we've got a bad infestation going on our potato plant. Now with a lot of our other plants, the only solution really is just to squish them out. And you get aphids all over your fingers. There are other solutions, and I'll go over those, what we use, how we find that they work, and how we utilize them in our indoor garden. But for now, we'll just be squishing them.